Today, we're diving into a story out of Uganda that really serves as a powerful warning for our increasingly digital world. We're going to explore what happens when the very system designed to make you visible, instead, makes you disappear.
And this isn't just some dramatic headline. As we're about to see, for millions of people in Uganda, this quote is their daily, lived reality. A reality where they are physically present, but socially and economically, they've been completely erased. And that's the central, tragic irony we're looking at here. A national digital identity system, then Ndaga Muntu, was rolled out with this big promise of modernization and bringing everyone into the fold, but instead, it's become a machine for mass exclusion.
So what does it actually mean to live as a ghost? Well, let's start with the human cost of this digital invisibility.
Okay, so this isn't some abstract problem. We're talking about real people. Take Asingwire Femia. She's a university student whose future was basically put on hold, locked out of her own bank account for months. Then there's Jackson Umpire, a motorcycle taxi driver who can't get credit to support his business because, in the eyes of the system, he might as well not exist. And then you have the entire Maragoli community, digitally erased and now facing the very real threat of losing their ancestral land. These aren't just data points. These are people whose lives have been totally suspended by a database error.
So how on earth did this happen? To understand that, we need to look at the paradoxical system at the heart of this crisis, what's being called the broken gateway.
The Ndaga Muntu is Uganda's national ID. But you've got to understand, it's way more than just a piece of plastic. It is the legally required key to almost everything. Getting medical care, receiving government grants, opening a bank account, you name it. It's positioned as the one and only gateway to participating in society.
And this is where things get really baffling. On the one hand, the law is crystal clear. This ID is mandatory. But on the other, a high court ruled that it's not technically a digital ID system because it can function offline. This ruling effectively gave the government a free pass, sanctioning the failures of a system that, for all practical purposes, controls people's access to life itself. And if you need any more proof that the system has failed, here it is. With the 2026 general election on the horizon, the government itself can't trust its own digital infrastructure. They're being forced to create a paper-based workaround, these voter location slips, which is basically a quiet but powerful admission that the whole digital project is too broken to be trusted with something as fundamental as the right to vote.
Now let's really dig into the numbers, because this is where you see how this problem builds into a full-blown crisis. The scale of the system's collapse is just staggering.
Just think about this number for a second. 11 million people. That's how many Ugandans went through the registration process but have never actually received their physical ID card. They're just stuck in this bureaucratic purgatory, officially registered but functionally unrecognized, totally unable to prove who they are. A huge part of this problem is just old, uncorrected data. I mean, look at this. Nearly half of all the reported errors are simple misspellings. Another 17% are wrong birth dates. These aren't sophisticated hacks. They are basic data entry mistakes from nearly a decade ago that have become permanent ghosts in the machine, haunting every single attempt to fix or update the system. And it gets worse. While millions of real citizens are locked out, the system has loopholes big enough for corruption to just thrive. Back in 2022, officials discovered that 6,000 fraudulent identities had been created, likely by insiders, just to siphon off aid and benefits. So the system isn't just broken by accident, it's being actively exploited.
This leads to a really crucial point. These failures are not random. They disproportionately affect the most vulnerable people, and they systematically reinforce existing social biases. This is a perfect case study in automating inequality.
So it forces us to ask a really tough question. Are we just looking at a series of unfortunate technical mistakes? Or is the system, in some ways, working exactly as it was designed?
Now this is fascinating. This is where a legal document becomes a tool for digital erasure. The Ugandan constitution has a list, the third schedule, of officially recognized tribes. The Maragoli people, who have lived in the region for centuries, well, they're not on that list. And because the digital ID system uses this list as its source of truth, it automatically denies them an ID, effectively making them stateless in their own country.
The gap between the system's promise and its reality is just stark. The promise was universal access, but the reality is the poorest citizens are literally chased away from clinics. The promise was legal security, but the reality is that entire communities are now vulnerable to having their land stolen right out from under them. Modernization has turned into a barrier, blocking the very people who need it most from moving up in the world.
So why does this story about an ID system in Uganda matter to the rest of us? Well, because this isn't just a local issue. It is a critical lesson for the entire world as we all rush to digitize everything.
This digital invisibility has global consequences. It makes it really easy for multinational agribusinesses to acquire the Maragoli people's land, often for products like coffee and corn that end up in the global supply chain. See, without IDs, these communities can't prove ownership in court. Their exclusion over there enables a smoother supply chain that reaches dinner tables and coffee shops all over the world. So this leaves us with 3 critical takeaways. First, making digital IDs mandatory without rock-solid safeguards is a massive human rights risk. Second, these huge, centralized databases can easily be turned into political weapons to exclude unwanted groups. And third, we have to start treating digital rights with the same urgency and seriousness as we treat fundamental human rights. And this is the question we really need to leave you with. As we build the digital infrastructure of the future, we have to constantly ask ourselves, are we truly building these systems to empower every single citizen? Or are we, consciously or not, simply perfecting the machinery to make the poor, the marginalized, and the inconvenient disappear?